Howdy Google Ads fans, and welcome back. In this lecture, we're going to talk about the Fogg behavioral model. You might have seen me discuss this in some other lectures or some other courses, but it's a really, really important, and I think it's an overarching important concept to understand for digital advertisers. First, this is a model developed by Dr. B.J. Fogg. He is a Stanford research psychologist, and he founded the Behavior Design Lab at Stanford University, where he focuses on a lot of human behavior, but also human behavior applied to the web. And his Fogg behavioral model is a really elegant and simple formula for understanding human action and human behavior. So his basic model states as follows. Behavior, B, equals motivation, M, A, T. Some people say it's P for prompt, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Behavior equals motivation, ability, and a trigger. Fundamentally, what he's saying is that in order for anybody to do anything, you need to have these three things in place. There needs to be a trigger or a prompt. There needs to be the ability to perform the behavior, and there needs to be motivation to perform the behavior. And if the behavior doesn't happen, then one of those things are missing. Now, of course, the trigger for a behavior is really, really straightforward. It's our ad. A person's searching for something and we're showing them an ad. There's a trigger in that ad, a call to action, click through, or buy from us now, or check out our catalog. There's that, we're trying to trigger them through presenting them an ad. But if we don't get that click, we lost that click to somebody else, then motivation or ability was lacking. If we do get a click, then all three of these factors were present. And of course, the trigger, we know the ad was there, it's clickable, that's the trigger. And we know that there was motivation and there was ability. As marketers, our job is always about influencing human behavior. It's always about trying to get people to perform desired actions, to convert, or to do anything that will ultimately lead to revenue. And getting a click on our ads is certainly one of those things. So let's draw out what the Fogg behavioral model actually looks like. And I apologize for that annoying squeaking. So on the vertical axis, we have, let's label this motivation. And down here, we'll label this horizontal axis ability. Okay, so you have motivation, you have ability. Motivation starts off, let's say, down here, low. A lot of motivation. Low motivation. And you have difficult and you have easy down here on this end, okay? That's the basic Fogg behavioral model setup. Now here's your action line. The action line basically looks like. And you need triggers or prompts, of course, to get that behavior to happen. Now, the prompts are going to succeed on the right side of this line, okay? You're going to have successful behaviors over here, so I'll label that in green. Your behaviors are going to fail over here to the left of the line, okay? This is where you're going to fail to get that action you want to happen, okay? This is the Fogg behavioral model. It's really simple. It's really straightforward. So now, get a different color. So for example, if we have an action, we're asking somebody to do something, and ability is, let's say, it's sort of difficult, or perceived ability, perceived behavioral control. There's different ways to refer to it, but basically the task is difficult and the motivation is low, and you fall right here, right? No good. But if, let's say, motivation stays low, but the task becomes really easy, then the behavior could actually succeed. Or on the flip side, if you have something which is, you're really highly motivated to do something, and it's extremely difficult, then you might lose. You might not get that behavior. But if you're highly motivated and it's difficult, but just a little bit less difficult, or a person has the perceived ability, then you will get that behavior to succeed. You might get that conversion. So essentially, our job is to increase ability, or you could call it decreasing difficulty of a task, and to increase motivation to perform the behavior. Now you can take any example, say like you're home and the doorbell rings and you get up to answer the doorbell, right? So you have a trigger to prompt that behavior. That getting up to answer the doorbell, you were prompted, you were triggered to do that action by the doorbell ringing. You had the motivation to do it. Let's say you wanted to let somebody in, you wanted to see who it was, and you had the ability to stand up, right? Now, you might not have gotten up to answer the doorbell. And there's a couple reasons why that might be. Well, one, it might be you're a really, really annoying neighbor, so your motivation was low, right? And that it's an easy task, but you still might fail because you have absolutely no motivation. Or you might really want to get the door, but you're sleeping, right? So you don't have the ability because you didn't hear the trigger. That trigger didn't happen. Or someone's sitting on you, I don't know. So you don't have the ability to get up, right? So you don't have the ability. You could think about a bunch of different behaviors, any action. Me being here, recording this course, I was prompted to do it because Google Ads changed their interface. So I need to re-record the course. I have the motivation to do it because I love teaching and it gives exposure to my business. I have the ability to do it because I have a camera crew and I understand Google Ads well, I think, I hope. So any action that you see somebody doing can be broken down to having a trigger for the action, sufficient motivation, and sufficient perceived ability, the task being easy enough. Now, you need to start thinking about this formula in the context of your business. And this is the example I typically give. Say you're an attorney, right? If you're a lawyer, you're an attorney, and you're trying to get leads. And let's use a really good example, personal injury lawyer. Now, the personal injury lawyer, right, we'll just call it PI, personal injury attorney, a client stands to win a lot of money, right? So I think the personal injury attorney is using Google Ads to try to get leads to their website, and we've managed quite a bit of these campaigns, and they're very expensive, very competitive. But here's what people don't understand. The motivation to convert is very high. So there's high motivation, right? But getting in touch with an attorney means there's paperwork, there's phone calls. I don't even know if I'm going to win this case. There's so many different hoops to jump through. The perceived ability to be successful with a personal injury attorney is low. So low perceived ability. Or you could say ability. Or you could say that it seems very hard to do, hard task, right? For all those reasons. Your job is to provide a trigger that influences the element of the formula that's lacking. Your job is not to try to motivate, in this case. Your job is try to increase perceived ability, make the task look easier. So the personal injury attorney's marketing campaigns, their ads in Google, their landing pages to talk about, we're going to hold your hand every step of the way. You just need to provide us 10 minutes of information and we could take it from there and let you know if you have a case. It's going to be a simple process. It's going to be organized. It's going to be this amount of time that you'll have to invest. It's not going to be overly complex, right? We're with you. We've done this before. If you start talking about, oh, we could get you $20,000, right? In most cases, the personal injury attorney potential clients that are searching Google for a personal injury attorney know that already. They already have high motivation, right? For the personal injury attorney, their motivation is high. They're right here, right? This is where they are. You need to get them here by making the task seem easier. Now take another example. Say you have a software as a service company and your conversion action is trying to get, let's say, newsletter signups. Okay, they're trying to get newsletter signups, and what you're asking them to do is you're asking them for an email address so you can join their mailing list. Because you know that 5% of your mailing list converts when you send out a monthly newsletter, and it's valuable. So what do you think is the contrast here? Like, what's the perceived ability or the difficulty of the task? What do you think? It's very high, right? Very high perceived ability. So it's very high, easy. We're going to call this, it seems very easy. How motivated do you think people are to enter in their email and to get spam from a company? How high is that motivation? Right? Not high at all, right? So low. So in this case, it's the exact opposite. Motivation is low. Where does this client, where are the prospects of this client on the Fogg behavioral model? Ability is easy. Motivation is low. They're over here, right? Where do we need to get them? We need to get them here. We need to make them more motivated. So we say, instead of saying, give us your email address, we say, give us your email address and we'll send you a 20% coupon for your next order. give us your email address, sign up for our newsletter, and we'll give you 3 months free, full use of the software. Right? We'll extend your trial by 2 months, whatever it may be. So you increase the motivation. The personal injury attorney is already motivated. You need to increase the perceived ability, decrease that difficulty factor. That's the behavioral model. And when you understand where you have to now sit and analyze your business. People who are searching for your products and your services, are they motivated? Do they understand what there is to be gained by using your product? If they do, then they have high motivation and they probably think there's some sort of complexity, some sort of lack of perceived ability. Maybe, and if they think something's too expensive, then that's a problem with perceived ability, meaning I can't afford it. It's difficult. I can't afford it. I can't afford this action, which you want me to do, which is to sign up or whatever it may be. So your job as a marketer in your ad copy is to provide the triggers that help offset the component of the model that's causing the behavior or putting the behavior happening at risk. Your job as a marketer is to find the component of the model that's causing the behavior to potentially not happen and write your triggers and your calls to action to talk to that specific point. So this is really important to think about as you're writing your ads. You want to make sure that your calls to action in your ad are talking either about ways to increase motivation, talking about the features of your product, let's say, talk about what there is to be gained by using the product and services, the emotional psychological payoffs, showing the customer what is in it for them. That's a trigger that will increase motivation if motivation is lacking. If perceived ability is lacking and people think it's too difficult, you need to have triggers talk about, see how easy this is, see how many other people are doing this. Talk about ways that make it look, oh, other people are doing it, I could do it too. Other people could afford it, I could afford it too. So many other people like me, that concept of social proof, I could do it too. It's gonna be only, most people think that this is a 10-hour process, it's only gonna be a 1-hour process. Great. This all of a sudden became what is easier in my mind for me to accomplish, and I have a higher chance of getting that behavior to be accomplished. So I really love the BJ Fogg behavioral model because every single client we get, we're able to take a look at it and make an analysis of, is this a business that people are sufficiently motivated to do, but the struggle is that they just think it's too complicated or too difficult or too expensive or too whatever? Or is this a business where people understand that it's cheap or it's easy or it's not a difficult task, but they just don't see the benefit. They're not motivated to find out more about our product or services. And once we have that conversation with our team and with the client, then we're able to have that analysis influence all of our marketing. It influences our landing page copy. It influences our ad copy very, very much. And when you do that right, you will see your click-through rate increase. And that reflects really, really well on the research case study that I showed you in the previous lecture. In the previous lecture, we spoke about the medical equipment company. We found out that people were sufficiently motivated to buy the product, but their perceived ability was low because they weren't sure, they didn't know if we had units that were lightweight enough and had battery power. So that would fall under the category of perceived ability was low. And meaning, if you really break it down, was like, okay, these units might be too heavy or the battery power might be too limited for me to really get the use that I need out of this. And once we describe that, no, we have all these super lightweight units and we have units that have battery power that will last all day, the perceived ability shot up, and then it allowed their motivation to have one of these units kick in, and we saw an increase in click-through rate and conversion rate. I hope you could read that, but you don't need to, I'm just writing. All right, so that's a pretty good, clear understanding of the BJ Fogg behavioral model. In the next lecture, we're going to go and actually write our first ad, and we'll move on in our first account that we're creating here in Google Ads. I hope this was useful. I hope it was insightful. I look forward to seeing you guys very soon in the very next lecture.